Call meeting for the Village of Cary for Tuesday, November 7th, 2017 to order with roll call, please.
Betts,
Here.
Cavalli,
Here.
Weinhammer,
Here.
Kostler,
Here.
McAlpine,
Here.
Kraus.
Here.
Thank you. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll now move to the public comment section where the audience can address the committee of the whole. We have one person sign in, Martha Ritter.
Good evening. First of all, I want to thank whomever, Courtney, for getting the streetlight finally fixed on School in Norman. Great job. And the other question I have is, if you noticed in the paper for the last couple weeks, Crystal Lake has been talking about building all those homes on 62 acres. And if Crystal Lake thinks building 360 residential units on 62 acres is far too dense, what is building 300 and something on 15 acres on Maplewood property called? Would that be called super duper high density? Just wondering. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move to a discussion on our refuse collection and spring cleanup adjustments with advance, or, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you this evening is a discussion on some proposed service and schedule changes for advanced disposal. The changes would be with regards to two of the primary functions that and most visible services that you see from our refuse company. The first being the pickup schedule, and then the second being the spring cleanup program. I'll provide a quick summary, and then representatives from Advanced Disposal are also here to answer questions if you have any for them. So the first request is to switch the pickup schedule, which currently, as you see on the map before you, is in 4 different days of the week. So the village is split up into 4 different zones. One zone's on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then as needed on Friday, miscellaneous pickups are done if anything is required. And with that, the route manager that supervises the operation is shared with some of the other communities that they do provide services with. And that person is on a on-call temporary or on-call and part-time basis, but does visit the site again as needed, and typically each day. The proposed change would then shift all pickup in the Village of Cary to a single day, which would be on a Wednesday. Some of the benefits were listed in the packet, some of which are more trucks available, better efficiency, the better ability to recover from any mechanical issues that might occur just with more trucks on site. And then they would also provide us with that on-site route supervisor for the entire day of the collection process. In addition, with only 1 day a week that garbage is collected in the village, that's just 1 out of 7 days that we might encounter the combination of high winds and the refuse collection, which could help minimize some of the issues with blowing debris and litter like that. The second request would be, again, a switch in the timing of how spring cleanup is conducted. Again, just like the regular refuse collection, it is done in a 1 week period. For basically each resident for that spring cleanup week would put out their large bulk items on their regular collection day. So the result of that is that we do have a substantial amount of materials and items on the parkway for an extended amount of time the entire week. The proposed change would go to a shift on Saturdays, and 2 different Saturdays. So one half of the village, one side of the railroad tracks or Route 14, more or less, as you see on the map, would be on one Saturday. And then the following Saturday, the other half of the village would be taken care of. Benefits to that are that we do have a more condensed timing of when all the materials are placed out for collection, and the better ability to, again, handle that with more trucks on site, with the ability for Advanced Disposal to devote resources that are freed up and available for them on those Saturdays. And with those proposed changes, village staff also discussed some other opportunities for enhancing and supporting those services. And Advanced Disposal was agreeable to providing us with 2 additional services without any changes to our rates or prices. The first would be 1 free bulk item that could be picked up per week. So in the current situation, residents have to attach and purchase a blue bag that's affixed to the item for pickup. So in this case, that would not be needed for the 1 free item per week. If you had additional ones that same week, then you would still follow the same process, or residents obviously could take advantage and then spread it out and put the other items out the following weeks. Items that would not be included in that would be the typical requirements for things like white goods or large appliances, hazardous materials, and construction debris. But the benefit of this is that residents can get rid of larger items throughout the entire year, and hopefully would then reduce the side effects that do occur with our spring cleanup, and also providing the opportunity for people to get rid of things quicker and not have to store them for longer periods. And second, Advanced Disposal is also willing to provide the village with a drop box that could be provided at the Public Works facility for electronics recycling. So this would be something that they would maintain and collect and haul away and dispose of properly for the village free of charge. This would be in lieu of the annual program that the village had been performing with a once a year or sometimes twice a year recycling event. Again, this gives us the opportunity for residents to take advantage of a free service and spread it out and get rid of those items in a manner that's responsible for environment, and also avoids that need to store them and then wait for a large event, in which obviously the village has had some logistical issues that occurred with the large demand, and it is our hope that this continuous service will help provide that better delivery of those products to the right place. And with that, I can bring up, I believe, Tish Powell and Chris Manley from Advanced Disposal are here to answer any questions you might have.
Hello.
Hello, good evening, Mayor, trustees, and staff. I'm Tish Powell. I'm the Municipal Marketing Manager with Advanced Disposal. This is Chris Manley. He is our General Manager for our Northbrook Division, and we're here to answer any questions that you might have. Here to talk trash.
So
How often do you use that line?
A lot.
I just had a quick question with regards to switching the service all to one day. Is Wednesday a set day, or is that possible to do like a Monday or a Tuesday?
Wednesday currently there would be no other interference with any of our other city contracts. We've got a lot of our drivers are on like a 4-10 schedule, and Wednesdays we'd be able to set aside basically and take care of the entire village of city of Cary all by itself without having to ask anybody else to move days. That's why we're proposing Wednesday.
Any other questions?
I like the concept.
So as opposed to what we're doing right now, which, divides everything up amongst the week, my only concern would be what if there's a big snowstorm on Wednesday, and then how does that affect pickup overall? Because you're obviously not going to be able to get the whole community done if something like that happens. Is that going to flow over to Thursday? And, how do you handle that?
We would handle it just like we do right now. If there was something really significant in terms of a significant snowfall or ice storm, and we had to delay the schedule by a day, then basically it would probably hit the whole area. So all of our schedules would be thrown off by one day. One thing I will note, this proposal that we're providing you with, the service enhancements, one of the things that we're very excited about is that this allows us to use primarily compressed natural gas trucks in your community. Probably about 70% of the vehicles that we would be using under this proposal would be run under compressed natural gas, which I know is consistent with the village's efforts in sustainability. So we're really excited about that feature to be able to bring that to the village of Cary.
I like the recycling, the electronics recycling also. I think that that's great. That alleviates, that's been a challenge for us to accommodate our residents' needs on that. So it'd be nice to have that as an ongoing type of service. And obviously, the same thing would happen if a holiday week, you're just going to switch from time to time. If that would happen, we would know that the day may get switched, and we can let our residents know that.
Absolutely. Sure.
A lot of value added to this, so that it benefits our residents as well.
Well, great. We're excited about the opportunity and appreciate the business and appreciate the partnership. So I hope that works out. And I know when we originally proposed this, we were looking to start this in December, and obviously we're well into November. So we would probably look to make this change in February, avoid the January holiday season when collections are usually thrown off because of New Year's Day and New Year's Eve. So we would be looking to institute this in February of next year, if this is agreeable to the board.
I do have one question. As you brought up with holidays, would it switch, like, say, 4th of July is on a Monday? Would our pickup switch then on till Thursday, or?
Yeah, just like what happens now. If there's a holiday during the week, all the schedules will just back up one day. So you would go from a Wednesday service to a Thursday service for that week. And we would do the exact same thing in a snowstorm. We would just back things up one day, and we plan to run our drivers on our Friday routes on Saturday. Okay. And that's exactly how we run the holidays.
And residents, because I get text alerts from you guys. So, I mean, residents can sign up for text alerts from you guys and just get notified that way too.
Absolutely.
So we have a consensus for this?
So I have a question. If we like some of this, but I'm not, this probably is going to sound a little petty, but the Wednesday date, I'm a current Tuesday person. And I know this sounds crazy, but on the weekends, let's say, we're a 4-person household. We have a lot of garbage. By even putting our garbage out this morning, I mean, it was jam-packed. And so now I'm thinking the weekends, now it's one more day, then the holidays, it's another day, now it's Thursday. So I'm not a huge fan of Wednesday, if we could change it to a Monday or Tuesday. But I like the electronics thing. I think the one free bulk item, I think that's really good. But that's my only small hang-up. Again, I prefaced it with kind of petty. But just from personal experience of a family of 4, just the amount of garbage we use or have.
Well, we're a family of 5, and our garbage day is Thursdays. It's just a matter, I think, of changes is a little different. And to change it, even for us from Thursday to a Wednesday, but it's just something that you have to kind of get used to.
Can you live with the Wednesday? Put this on the consent agenda?
I don't know yet.
Okay. So I think we have a consensus that there will be a change here, that we'll have a separate action item on it for a separate vote on that, the next village board meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll have a public hearing to consider approval of a conditional use for a monument sign and a variance for a wall sign at the Kids Are Kids Daycare located at 2250 Crystal Lake Road here in Cary. We typically will take testimony. Is there anybody here in opposition of the signage on 3 Oaks Road or on Crystal Lake Avenue? One more time. Anybody here in opposition for the signage to discuss? Okay, go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Mayor. The request this evening, as mentioned, is a request for conditional use for a monument sign and a variation for a wall sign for the Kids Are Kids Daycare. The daycare was recently constructed on the site, and it's just getting approvals for their signs as due to the property being within a residential district. Different zoning or the presence of the residential district requires certain approvals for signs within that district. Apologies. So this evening they're seeking approval for a monument sign. They're permitted 1 per street frontage of the property. But the code requires conditional use approval within the residential district. The wall sign, as proposed in the south facade, would face Crystal Lake Road frontage. It's about a 10 square foot sign. And due to the residential zoning, signs are typically only nameplates are permitted, so it would require variance to install a larger sign on the subject property. This slide shows elevations of the two signs. The sign on the left-hand side of your screen is the monument sign. It will be a ground sign that will be installed near the easternmost entrance to the property. And then the wall sign would be located on the front of the building near the entrance to the building. This slide shows both the site plan, existing site plan of where those two signs will be located at, and also a elevation that was provided in the original zoning application that shows the two signs were originally planned as part of their project moving forward. Under the village's sign code for conditional uses to satisfy
of the sign, which are summarized in the slide, but in general, the
endanger the public health. Sign would not substantially diminish or impair the value of properties within the neighborhood, would not impede the normal orderly development, and the use would comply with all the requirements of the title. The monument sign, where it's proposed, will not impact surrounding property owners or surrounding property development. It will be located according to village standards as far as a setback from the property line and size requirements for the type of sign within the residential zoning district. Similarly, there's variance standards that are required for the establishment of a variance for wall sign, that the sign is impractical or impossible to be built under the standards of the title. The applicant has not taken any action that has caused the extraordinary condition or made it worse than otherwise might have been. The relief proposed will not alter the character of the locality, and the relief proposed is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the regulations. Again, with the subject property being residential zone land, other institutional uses are allowed to be developed in those districts. Churches, daycares, libraries, similar uses are appropriate in there, which do require signage to advertise the type of business that is there versus a residentially occupied structure. So the variance that's being requested is similar to other variances that the village has supported in the past, most recently for the Lutheran Church on the corner of Main Street, or sorry, First Street and Three Oaks Road received approval of 3 variances for wall signs at that facility. And likewise, also the sign is 10 square feet in size, so it's very appropriately scaled for the property. With that information, the staff is recommending, should the committee of the whole determine that the sign complies with both the conditional use and the variance standards, they should recommend approval of the following motion. Approval of a conditional use for a monument sign and a variance for a wall sign for the Kids Daycare located at 2250 Crystal Lake Road, subject to the conditions as listed in your staff report. Petitioner is also here, can provide additional information as far as the request this evening.
Is there any questions on this?
I think it looks great. I like the brick. It fits in very nice. I don't know who the petitioner is, but it fits in very nice with the whole development there. I like the brick and the monument.
It'll look nice with the other school signs that are there too.
Mm-hmm.
Did we receive any comments from any property owners that were notified adjacent to this?
Oh, we did not.
Do we have a consensus to move this forward? Can I put this on the consent agenda?
Yes.
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 Kids, are they here? You've got your sign. We'll put it on the consent agenda for the next board meeting on, I think it's November 21st. So it'll be just a matter of just the board voting on it, but you've got your signage. Just talk with Brian. He'll take you through the rest of the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Brian, you're not going anywhere, are you?
Nope.
Okay. We have a discussion regarding a reduction to the annexation fee related to the Westlake subdivision.
Thank you, Mayor. As the board's aware, the Westlake subdivision is a stalled residential development within the village of Cary. Little history on the site. Back in 2003, the development received both zoning and annexation approval for 227 single-family attached units to be constructed within the area. It also included retail sites along Three Oaks Road, which two of the three properties have been developed to date. Included various recreational features throughout the subdivision, including bike path, park, and then also a detention basin that connected up to the Hollows Nature Preserve. Currently, 67 of the original 227 units, or roughly 30% of the development, has been constructed. The roadways, sidewalks, and utilities have all been installed, with the exception of sidewalks right in front of the townhome pads that have not been developed to date. So there's gaps in the area as far as the sidewalk pedestrian system. There are roughly 160 units that are left to be constructed, with about 118 of those units south of Wellington Lane, and 42 of those units left in pockets to the north of that roadway that divides the subdivision in half east-west. Developer D.R. Horton currently has the property under contract to purchase the entire subdivision with the intent to complete the build-out as originally approved. Their contract has been relayed to staff is to purchase it within 3 phases. So in certain milestones over the next year, they would purchase that entire property and move forward with development. Again, their goal is to construct the remaining single-family attached homes. The architecture which they are proposing closely matches what was originally approved. Staff has worked with their design team to modify their architectural drawings to comply with what was originally approved by the village back in 2003. As a result of their product complying with what was originally approved, there's no additional zoning entitlements that are required for the site. They're able to move forward with obtaining building permits for the project without having to go through the zoning process for additional relief. However, this evening, as part of the request to develop the site, as part of the financials that they've reviewed for the site, they are asking for a reduction in a fee which is included in the annexation fee for the property. Specifically, it's an annexation fee. Currently, the annexation agreement establishes a fee of $6,000 for the property, and they're requesting to reduce that down to $1,500. This slide here provides an overview of the impact fees which are associated with the development of units within the subdivision. Broken down by 2- and 3-bedroom. These would be the fees that would be applied to a single-family attached unit. The Village of Cary fee, which is highlighted in the slide with the arrow, is the fee in question, where combined with the proposed reduction would reduce the impact fees for a 2-bedroom unit to approximately $5,300, for a 3-bedroom unit to $6,700. Currently, for those 2 types of units, the current fees would be around $9,800 and a little over $11,000 for each of those units. The proposal would result in complete build-out, a contribution to the Village of Cary of $240,000, and that would not include any additional fees or revenues that we would receive through building permit and tap-on fees, which for the remaining 160 units, 15,000 a unit, would roughly equate to about $2.4 million of additional revenues that the village would receive. Brief over the subject property is addressed in our village's comprehensive plan. Looks at the land use being encouraged for single-family attached housing, which the project, as originally approved, would comply with. There is some additional guidance in the plan as far as the village working with development to get the solid product development taking off again on that site, looking for ways to potentially encourage development moving forward. So for tonight's discussion, we're seeking direction from the committee of the whole, basically to see if there's support to modify the annexation fee related to the Westlake subdivision. And if so, that would require approving an ordinance at an upcoming village board meeting that would establish a reduced fee. Based off the language that is in the existing annexation agreement, it states that the village can charge up to $6,000 for that fee. So if the board unanimously decides to charge a lesser fee, that would just require an ordinance to approve that fee. It would not require a formal amendment to the annexation agreement. The petitioner is here, and I'll invite them up to provide additional information as far as their request, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have after they speak as well.
Sure. Dave Mc-
Thank you, Brian. Good evening, board members, Mr. Mayor, staff. Actually, a great synopsis of what we're talking about, so thank you for that. As Brian said, D.R. Horton, my name is Jay Cherwin, by the way. I'm representing D.R. Horton. Danielle Dash is managing the project, and unfortunately couldn't be here. Most of their executives locally are down in Texas for a corporate meeting, so I'm standing in. And Danielle's been in touch with Brian, though, working on this. And I think, like I said, Brian did a great job summarizing this. Essentially, what we have is an old annexation agreement from approximately 14 years ago or so when this was initially envisioned. And as Brian said, I think we've got about 67 units out of the 227 that have been completed. And what D.R. Horton's doing is they're looking at developments in the area or potential opportunities to come in and resurrect developments that have been broken so that those can move forward. So I think, and as they analyze those projects, of course, they go through their feasibility study, make sure that it makes sense from both an internal underwriting perspective, and then, ultimately have to market these units and sell them at a practical pace in order to make the project work. So as Brian indicated, our ask has been to evaluate that annexation fee that was in the original agreement, or the maximum fee that could be charged in the original agreement. And essentially what we're looking for is a reduction in that to make the project feasible. We would continue to pay the impact fees that are already scheduled to be paid for any other subdivision that would be built in the village. But this was one of, I believe, 2 projects that at some point in the past had a higher annexation fee attached to it as part of the annexation agreement process. So that's the relief we're looking for. We would turn that into a $1,500 fee, and I believe that would go into a building fund, and that would be really the relief we're looking for. As Brian said, from a zoning perspective, entitlements, there's nothing that at this point we believe needs to be done. So that's our request. If you have any additional questions.
The village board, just to clarify, the board would have the opportunity to decide where those dollars go. I mean, we talked with the petitioner here regarding our building fund and trying to increase revenues in that. So that's why petitioner mentioned that, but certainly that's up to your discretion.
Any discussion?
I just want to say I'm happy that somebody's stepping in to hopefully provide some continuity to that neighborhood, and it sounds like that's what you're going to be doing. One question is, what type of price point are you looking at for these units? Because that, when I look at, this type of impact fee, I have to weigh that together, so.
Yeah, and I think, from my perspective, I apologize, I don't have all the numbers on the business people would handle that in terms of the marketing and what exactly they're looking at it, and I apologize, I don't have that figure. I'm not confident giving you that.
We'll get that information for you, Trustee Kostler, and follow up with you and the board.
And how did we come up with $1,500 from $6,000 to $1,500? How did that come about?
Again, that's, as they look at the feasibility of underwriting the project and understanding what they can, what they can afford to pay and what they have to market the units at, they're going to do that internal analysis. So again, that's a conversation. I think we can get more detail from the business folks in terms of how they arrived at that figure, but I wasn't involved in those calculations.
I will say that they had started previously, and there was an ask to write down water and sewer tap-on fees, and village staff told them that wouldn't be acceptable by the village board. As you know, we've got a lot of capital infrastructure here related to water and sewer, some that we're working on right now, millions of dollars. So they went back to the drawing board, took that off the table, and now we're at the 1,500. So we have been working with them behind the scenes, and they've made an effort to work with the village.
So to answer Trustee Cavelli's question, that was a number that was brought to us by D.R. Horton.
Correct.
Have you had a reduction in fees for any of the other districts, or is it just the village board?
At this point, the other districts should be getting, the plan is to continue with the impact fees that would otherwise be charged. So there would be no reduction. The reduction would be coming from the annexation fee of the maximum amount of $6,000 that was incorporated into the 2003 agreement. So the other impact fees would stay flat. And I think that's consistent with what Brian, as the discussion has been with D.R. Horton.
Any other comments?
From a clarification standpoint, and this is probably more for you, Jake, I believe that you've told us before that there's a sunset clause, so to speak, on the annexation fee. When is that?
I believe that's 2023. So it's a 20-year agreement, and as the petitioner mentioned, inception was in 2003. So in 2023, the annexation agreement would essentially be null and void. There wouldn't be any annexation fee that the Village of Cary would receive.
So if you begin construction in 2018 and you're anticipating, from what I'm reading, that this will take 5 years, what if it takes 7? If it comes after that 5 years, do we all of a sudden not get the portion that we agree to reduce? Do you follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we're going to reduce it, I mean, I'm looking at things saying, you know, of course, getting something is better than getting nothing. On the flip side, I don't want a project to start and then you only get 50% of the way through. So now half of that annexation, we're not getting anything on. Does anyone follow my train of thought on that?
Does the petitioner have any knowledge of how long build-out is expected for this
Said
development?
5.
Yeah, about 5 years is a good estimate. I certainly could go.
Be quicker.
Hope it goes quicker. But yeah, 5 years, I think, is the estimate. So it's probably right up how the dates work. I'm not sure, maybe March, it was March of '03. So maybe March of, yeah, I don't know where it fits in that. Yeah, so you would, so your concern is that if you reduce it, then, you know, if say 20 lots are still on the backside of the agreement, the agreement goes away. And that we haven't spoken about that detail yet. I mean, if that's something we need to look at.
Is the petitioner open to providing these fees in advance to the Village of Cary to answer Trustee McAlpine's question?
Again, that's something I'll have to continue the discussion with Horton. I'll ask Horton if that's something they've considered. I don't know if that's been part of the conversation at this point. Okay.
Brian, I had a question for you. You had mentioned that we have the discretion currently of assigning up to $6,000, and if we wanted to do it less, we could, without having to do an ordinance.
It would require an ordinance to approve from the board level, but it would not require an amendment to the annexation agreement. But the way the language states is that the village annexation fee can be up to a maximum of $6,000. So and obviously time has passed since the board originally approved that agreement, a different board. So if this board decided to approve a reduced fee, we would have to approve that fee at a separate ordinance that would establish what that new fee would be. But it wouldn't require a public hearing and notice to other taxing bodies to formally amend the agreement.
Okay.
I just had a point to clarify, reference Trustee McAlpine's statement, Ellen's statement about the impact fees. It says right here in the letter from D.R. Horton that they would pay these prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Yeah, so I think the current understanding would be that when as they develop lots and they get building permits on those lots, that's when it would typically be paid. If they've considered or had any discussions on paying them up front in bulk, I think is the question. That I don't know, and I can't speak to it. My apologies.
Right. Yeah, all the impact fees would be collected at the time a building permit is issued for a townhouse building. So if there's 4 units that are constructed all at once, I would receive 4 permits, 4 fees, payments for each one of these, 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom units. Trustee McAlpine's, comment is looking at, if it's a lump sum of $50,000 or something like that, that would be paid in advance of those permits being pulled, if I understand correctly.
I think it's important that we also are cognizant of the fact that D.R. Horton did provide us with annexation fees for nearby municipalities, just so that we know from a comparison standpoint where we fall in line, that currently we are probably a little bit higher than most of the other, we are considerably higher than our nearby municipalities. So I think we should be cognizant of that as a board as we're looking at this also.
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up. And that shows in the letter, 3 other municipalities of 750, 1,000, and 1,000. I think there was also a development, my understanding is recently, here in the village where there's been I don't think it was an annexation fee, but a similar development fee where we're in line with that from several years ago. So we are trying to keep comparative to the market.
Brian, there's only one other subdivision that currently has that $6,000 fee. Is that Lions Ridge, the new Lions Ridge?
Correct. Lions Ridge has an annexation agreement and a fee that's associated with that. So every new house or home that's constructed in that area pays a per unit fee as well. The other developments we were speaking of, petitioner was speaking of, were the PEDCOR and Pearl projects. We had additional fees that were negotiated as part of their approvals that are being paid at the time of building permit or were paid at the time of building permit, which were $250,000 for the PEDCOR project, and then $100,000 of fees that would be associated with the Pearl project, which would be additional contributions to the village for that building fund. These fees would be similar to the scale of what those were.
Well, I think we have a lot of unanswered questions here. It would be my recommendation, if I can have the board's consensus on this, that we get some additional answers to move this forward. I think, no offense to you, you're not the right person that we need to be talking to. We need to get some of these answers drilled down so we can make an educated decision on this. There's some valuable questions that have been answered, and I think moving this to, when can we put this to the next committee meeting?
We can discuss this on the November 21st.
I would recommend having them come back on November 21st with perhaps somebody that could help us understand exactly what we're looking at here.
Okay. We will connect with Brian in the interim and make sure we have all the right questions that you want answered, and we address those. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then finally, a discussion on the village attorney and prosecuting attorney request for qualifications. This is another mayoral appointment that we've been considering for a while. When we had a change in our village attorney, when Michael Coppage left us to become a judge, that time we made the switch to Ansel Glink, and they have been serving us well since that time. And now is the time when we thought that we would be going out for proposals for this sooner, but with everything that has been going on, it's been very difficult to do. We've finally been able to catch our breath and have an opportunity to throw this out for qualifications. And I'll let Jake kind of talk a little bit about the timeline that has been come up with so we can be fair about this.
Sure, absolutely. Before you in the packet, here's the full RFQ. If there's any comments or questions from the village board, I also included a schedule for you to review how the process would play out. So essentially, we'd be issuing these documents, the request for qualifications for interested firms to respond to. There'd be a question and answer period to ensure that all questions are answered from the subject firms. We've got 2 parts here. So there's a village attorney part, and there's also the prosecuting attorney. Then what the schedule lays out here is that we'd get the proposals, village staff, department heads, and myself would go through, complete interviews, whittle that village attorney stack down to 2 or 3 attorneys that we'd bring back here for the village board to interview, and ultimately, hopefully, decide on one that you can all agree on. And then we'd have the prosecuting side that Chief Finland is going to work with his staff, his executive staff, to select a prosecuting attorney and bring that forward to the mayor. So as the mayor mentioned, this is a mayoral appointment. It will come back here to the village board for the attorney side, for the village attorney side, excuse me, for the interview process. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding this process, but we're ready to send out the document and proceed with the RFQ period.
Any questions? If during this time you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to either Jake or myself. Keep you updated as to the process. I don't think we have any other department head updates, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.